I'm Tara Goodwin. I work for CityFront Innovations. This is my first venture into technology. I actually come to
Welcome.
Thanks. It's a little overwhelming. I come from the world of large manufacturing and fashion, so it's a little different, but it's exciting, and I'm excited what we're able to do for cities and help them really connect with their citizens.
Cool. My name's Steve Denny. I am kind of sitting in. Ryan and I were going to kind of tag team. Actually, all three of us were going to kind of tag team on this presentation, you guys. But I come from the world of technology. I had a software company for many years. We did Active Directory, web applications. We talked about authentication, authorization, those kinds of things. But this latest foray is into, and also worked Travelocity for a number of years, which kind of got me into technology, if you will, back in the 2000s. So. Brian actually had the flu. I don't know how many people you know have the flu right now. I know 3, including now his daughter who got sick yesterday, so she was up all night. So.
And there'll be no shaking hands today. By
Yeah, there better not be anybody in this room with the flu.
It's going crazy. Huh? Yeah. It's getting rather rampant. So I'm glad he's not here, so we're not shaking hands with him either. So we're going to kind of walk you through this. CityFront Innovations is a startup. We started about 6 months ago, and it was after actually Brian and I met for coffee one day, because I know he did a lot of things with cities, and he had a company that all he did was take technology to cities for the last 17 years. So I had coffee with him and I said, you know what, I've got this platform that I think cities might be interested in. And that just kind of moved into what we have today, which is CityFront Innovations. And I'll let kind of Tara kind of walk you through kind of the overview, and then I'll work into kind of the bugs. And what I want to talk about today, I want to keep it pretty high level on some of the things that we're seeing as we're talking to cities. We've now talked to probably a few dozen cities about their technology, their mobility, their connections with their citizens, civic engagement, platforms, data. And we're just going to kind of share with you what we found thus far, and this is burgeoning kind of industry. It's kind of wild, wild west out there right now. So we just want to kind of keep it high level and talk about what we've seen and kind of how we're trying to tackle it as a company, as a startup. So.
Great. So if you're here, we're going to film this. All right.
Yes.
We're ready. Yeah. I'll sign the release waiver for that data later.
But you're very fashionable.
Well, thank you guys. So what is a smart city? It's a ubiquitous term now. It's like the cloud. It's like IoT even. You hear it everywhere. But what's the definition? And what does it truly mean to different cities? The answer is yes. Whatever you're thinking it means, to some extent, it means that. Every city has a different answer.
Good.
All right. So if you
We're out of sync, by the way. So if we go click, click, click.
I'm not the presenter. Brian is. So Brian, our co-founder, has been in over 3,000 different city halls. He's presented to 500 city councils. And each one of those would give you a different answer on what a smart city is. And then if you were to talk to a city manager might say that a smart city involves technology to help run their traffic, to help with city engagement, to help with citizen safety, unify their utilities. However, if you were to ask a city council member, they might say, it's going to get me reelected. And that would be their main platform, is getting reelected. And so it's a different answer. But really and truly, the answer is the data. Because that's what's important. And it's all about the data. Cities are data rich. They have all of this data, but what do they do with it? And so that's what we want to help with them. At CityFront, we think of a smart city as one that can break down the departmental silos that these cities have and work across the different departments and use their current systems and new systems to mine this data. All right, because what smart cities is going to do for you is create more data. You need to learn how to use the data that you already have. And that's from Hardik Bhatt. He's the former Illinois State CIO. So like I said,
He's not there anymore?
No, I got this quote, actually, he was at a symposium, he was one of the guest speakers. It was kind of a roundtable discussion, and this is actually what was quoted by him. So I think he actually is still in Illinois, but he's doing something else within the state.
Okay.
So.
Great guy though. So like I said, cities are data rich, they're information poor. They don't know what to do with this data. They haven't had to use it, and they haven't had a way to use it, really. And so we want to help them capture that and start making decisions and create a decision criteria based on this data. And any data from newer systems, including IoT devices, need to be incorporated into decision analysis. So that's easier said than done. Cities aren't really set up for this. It's obviously easier. Cities need to create an enterprise data sharing agreement, kind of like we talked about when meeting some of y'all. They have this data, but it's siloed, and now they have to figure out how to work across that. But it's been, for so long, they haven't had to do that. And they need to enable the breakdown of the data silos. So, who owns it? Which department? How do they share it? Will they have to aggregate it? Where will the data reside? Is it going to be on-site? Is it going to be in the cloud? And who can access the data? Who can see which departments need which information? And how do they make that decision? Who makes that decision even? And at the forefront of everyone's mind, is it secure? We've seen enough lately that data is important, but security of that data, I'm sure as all you guys see, is of the utmost importance, especially when you're dealing with private citizens and government agencies.
And we were just talking earlier actually about within trust folks, and there's a difference between authentication and authorization. So once you come into a system, you're authenticated, we kind of know who you are, but what can you do with that data? How can you share that data? So it's a big question, obviously, within public government, with the big brother kind of thing hanging on your head. This is one of the big topics when we go and talk to cities. It's around security of the data and where the data resides and how are you accessing that data and for what.
All right, but don't worry, guys, there's good news. And so some of that good news is this is the perfect storm. Cities all across the globe are having these conversations. What do they do with this technology, and how do we implement working with this data? The technology is here, it's on the app development side, and it's ready to take advantage of this opportunity. Everyone has the technology. They have the data. Let's make it work for us. Local governments are healthier financially. There's more money to spend on actually mining this data and using it to make it work for them. And also, citizens in the community have access to this amazing technology. I mean, it used to be you'd say, raise your hand if you have some type of smart device, and now it's, you're weird if you don't. Everyone in here has at least one smart device, at least in your pocket. You probably have certain wearables. And how many more do you have at home? Because if you're like my family, even my 7-year-old has access to a smartphone or access. And so, our approach, that's going to be Steve.
Oh, yeah. So I tag team. So,
You gotta go high.
yeah, exactly. And Pete and I met, about a month ago, I guess, didn't we, over at Plano? So we talked about Kevin Hart and some of the stuff.
Yeah.
So,
Not the short comedian.
no, that's what I was talking about. No, I'm kidding. Actually, just saw his movie. Y'all see Jumanji yet? The new one. I took my kids there. It's absolutely hilarious, even for adults, by the way. So we have this idea of kind of this a connected city, right? When you talk to a lot of the people, especially going into new areas, we heard about the new Bill Gates investment down in Phoenix, talking about the kind of a greenfield, kind of doing from the ground up. We're talking about hyper-connectivity, right? So everything has a device. We're talking about billions and billions of data points that are going to be coming about. And what our approach is, okay, we have a connected city, right? So what exactly are we going to do with that data? So there has to be some way to kind of federate that data somewhere, to be able to access it, to have access points, to be able to create, the applications on top of it, to do the analytics, to do all the things we want to do, because not one vendor is going to be controlling all the data and all the IoT devices and all the different things in this world. So with the future world, and even today. So our approach is to kind of take a look at the connected city, look at how we're going to federate this data, and then to people who are working on the AI stuff, how are we going to train that corpus, right? How are we going to annotate the data in order for it to understand an NLP specifically, right? So we've talked to Dallas and Chicago, and both of those guys, both the CIOs they're all about the data, like I said earlier. They have all these great technologies doing smart cities, but what are we going to do with data? How are we going to be smart about it? How are we going to feed it into a Watson or into a Stanford or into any other type of system in order to train information based on natural language processing or any other data that we want to push in there? So that's kind of our approach with that. And then how are we going to do the work on the data? Are we going to build dashboards? Are we going to build analytics? Are we going to build mobile applications? Are we going to build systems that make the city employees smarter? Are we going to build systems that make civic engagement easier so information can flow very freely between citizen and the community and the government? So that's kind of our approach. So we've kind of broken it down into kind of the first steps of what we think smart city needs to grow into, because how many people have talked to a city about smart cities? Anybody? Yeah, quite a few, right? Like Tara said earlier, everybody has a different definition of what a smart city is. The technology is there, they just don't know necessarily how to use it. So we're trying to break it down into baby steps here, and we're starting, our concept is starting with civic engagement. We think that if you engage the citizen around smart cities about the things that you can do with the city and have them work with you in the devices that they have in their pockets today, then city council and other people can start leveraging that kind of inertia to start building out more smart city applications, actually getting the budgets for it. So you kind of get this kind of ground stuff. So we're really starting ground roots kind of idea around a civic engagement application on a mobile device. Yeah.
One comment on the civic engagement, I also coordinate the DFW Data Science Meetup. And for the first 10 to 15 minutes, we encourage our DFW Divergence Academy students or any student to present about the Dallas data. So last meetup, there was a lady that looked at the Dallas police record data and helped come up with an algorithm to predict how many crimes are going to happen that's going to keep the police officers safe in the citizen state. So that's like, I feel like that's a good civic engagement. Please think about, when you're thinking about smart cities.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I'm just tired of playing with New York City and San Francisco data.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, the citizens today, I mean, they're number one, they're click lazy, right? They're not going to go mine for a lot of data, but then they get this idea that they're mad at the city because they only want to engage when they want to engage. They don't want to have the city tell them when they want to engage, right? If I want to pay a water bill, that's when I engage with the city. It's a pretty heinous process right now, but that's the time I want to do that. Or if I need a permit, stuff like that. So we want to create a way that the citizens can go get that information much more quickly, much more rapidly, and on devices that they're used to using today and using the technology today. So that's kind of our first kind of step into it. Again, leveraging mobile technology. So how many there are no city apps that you actually can talk to in a natural language way, in a Siri way, or an Alexa way, right? They're all basically a regurgitation of their website. Menu driven, you got to mine for the data, and after 10 minutes you're done, you can pick up the phone and call them, right? So we're saying, okay, why don't we leverage some of the technology in the mobile environment to start that and to kickstart their smart cities, if you will, from a civic engagement perspective. And then we'll take baby steps. So when we talk about data and the security of it, and who owns it and everything else, we need to think about kind of a one single mobile user experience, right? So the city of Dallas has 4 or 5 different apps that you can download on the store. Well, and you have 6 different vendors who take money from you for the city of Dallas. And they're all different user experiences, and they're all, all these different platforms. Every time you click it, you go to another subdomain, right? And you kind of move throughout. So why can't we federate that and say, okay, I understand the data. I'm not recreating the wheel here. I'm not throwing the baby out, but just give me all that information. I can create one single user experience to be able to pay. I can pull it up, say you owe $200 on your water bill. Oh, and by the way, you have your permits coming up to do for your house, for your alarm permit, and you have 3 parking tickets you have to pay, right? So that information is readily available. It's just about federating it and creating a way that a user can actually engage with the city the way they want to engage with it, as opposed to the way Dallas tells you to engage with it. So that's kind of our thinking. We want to take those baby steps into just one area, say, yeah, we can do it, we can keep it secure, we can make sure that the data is not going to get, hacked and all those kinds of things. So that's some of the conversations we have. And again, the single user experience, and that's, the Colony is one of our first clients here. The Colony is 40,000 people, right? Just a bedroom community, right outside of right outside of Plano. They have 170 disparate systems. 170, that's the Colony. And trying to figure out how, they just went to a new CMS on their website. They're trying to pull all this stuff into a single user experience, and it's not even close, right? So it's just, we're trying to figure out a way to get cities to understand that we need, as a citizen, we want one way to engage with the city, whether it be mobile, whether it be online, whether it be sitting in front of the permitting department. So civic engagement, some of the things that we're trying to tackle is the voice command, natural language processing, being able to bring in NLP from Stanford libraries and understand how people are mining the data in the city. So one of the great things about what we're doing as opposed to Siri and Alexa is we're now, the Colony, it's a finite amount of data that we need to go mine. We don't have to mine the world in order to get the information. We can actually have, there's tons of digital assets out there that we can go mine, annotate, and then train a corpus on a voice command. So now we can speak to the data, call on the data as opposed to go search for the data. We're talking about image recognition. So if you ever done a 311, anybody's ever submitted a pothole? Okay? In our view, we should be smart enough to know what a pothole is relative to a graffiti, relative to a broken water main. We have the technology to recognize and classify different objects. Why don't we use that? So we're using, again, some artificial intelligence training in order to recognize a pothole from graffiti, from a water main break, from a dead animal, or even a live animal running around. So
I hate when the dead animals run around.
or even live animals, or dead animals running around. Well, I don't want to talk about schools. So the interesting thing about that is, now that we know what the data is, now we know that it is a pothole, we know that it is a water main break, we should be smart enough to know where it goes. We shouldn't have the citizen sit there and click through what department it goes to and classify it themselves and then tell you to make sure we know where you are. Or even plug into their 311 system to understand who you are, right? So we should be smart enough to know that. So those are some of the things we're trying to tackle, is take it all the way through. As a matter of fact, we should be smart enough and integrated enough to be able to create the work order for the system. Right? So those are some of the things we're trying to tackle there. And chatbots. How many people have heard chatbots? Great. Talk to a city, they're like, they have no idea what a chatbot is. Most people don't these days. But again, calling on the data, right, or asking a question online through a chatbot, then the amount of ROI just in that, saving a phone call, saving an emails for a warm body to actually process when is the 4th of July event, right? When is the fireworks event this year?
So the 4th of July.
Sometimes not, right? So sometimes it's a Friday night and 4th of July is on a Sunday,
Why
right?
didn't my garbage get picked up on Monday?
Exactly. So yeah, and so those types of things we're trying to, again, train a corpus in order to develop a way for people to get information, FAQs, out of the city without having to call or email. Still have it available for some of the folks that still want to talk to a live person. It's absolutely available. But for the myriad of other folks that are out there just want to get information, they don't want to go mine for data again. So this is, again, another area that we're talking about civic engagement. And the other thing is, too, if you're at Facebook, last week they came out with the idea of dropping all the pages information. So if you have a page, either public or private, and somebody's liked your page, you're going to start getting pushed down. They have a new algorithm coming out that it's all about friends and family. So if you have a page that you're sending out stuff on Facebook, and you don't get a lot of engagement from your Facebook likes, you're going to start getting pushed down. So right now you're only appearing 1 out of 10 times probably. Now it's going to be even less. So go take a look at that. So chatbot's a way that you actually can have one-on-one conversations with folks. So instead of, you can direct message them, one-on-one conversations. So those are some of the things that, from a civic engagement, the cities are really excited about as well. Oops, sorry. The last one is the augmented reality. So we got virtual reality, or another augmented reality. Where was that? Yep. So we've partnered with a company here in Frisco, actually, Aerial, who has patented the ability to place augmented reality based on latitude, longitude, and altitude. Right? So it's markerless.
And distance.
And distance, you're right. And that's actually Kevin Hart, the guy who introduced me to Pete.
Yeah, in Jumanji.
Or the former SMU quarterback.
Or maybe
That's
the
really
former
tall.
SMU quarterback.
Maybe
It's one of the
him.
two.
Maybe him.
So it's a markerless technology. So if you remember Pokemon, anybody know? So yeah, exactly. So that was based on coordinates, right? I mean, based on your phone, and you see the Pokemon here, right? But you may on your phone see it over there because the lighting is different.
So,
You
better example.
go ahead.
Do you guys ever hear of the Discovery Channel? Okay, so they have every year they have this week, they call it Shark Week. So Aerial actually, for Shark Week, did the augmented reality application where you can hold your phone up and you can see the sharks swimming everywhere.
And they actually created
They
algorithms.
also did they did one for the BCS where you could see the championship trophy. I know it won't ever come to Baylor, but sorry, Trent. But the you can actually see the trophy on your campus.
Yeah.
Well, I give all these students
Very
a
cool.
friend.
Indeed.
I'll remember this, Pete.
But it's really cool. But we're talking about creating experiences for citizens to actually use technology. So we're talking to Philadelphia about taking your phone and doing a virtual or an augmented tour of Independence Hall, right? So we can remove everything that was post 1776, put Ben Franklin there speaking about whatever we want to speak about, and draw a little fidelity green line. You seen those commercials? To the next wave. And as you're moving away from Ben Franklin, he's getting softer and softer in your ear, so his voice is getting softer. And as you're moving more towards John Hamilton or whoever. Who? Hancock. John Hancock, not him. Yeah. He was part of Alexander. Thank you. And you're walking to them, so they're getting louder as you're getting closer. And it's a shared experience, right? So it doesn't matter if you're on an Android, doesn't matter if you're an iPhone. We're anchoring it there literally in space, and you can walk around it, interact with it. It's really actually fantastic technology. But again, we're trying to figure out ways to engage with the citizen, and that's one way to do it, right? Little Elm, we're talking about doing like a yellow brick road along their trails for their families. So they can take kids along, and it's sitting on the Unity platform so you can gamify it. They can pick up jewels as they're walking with their children through the trail. So you can enable that, right? And we can change jewels instantaneously based on the CMS that we have involved with that. So some really cool stuff, yes.
So, Steve, great talk, by the way.
Oh.
It's absolutely wonderful. In the last year at TIA, one of the things we focused on is modeling smart communities so it's repeatable. Because one of the challenges is, as you said, every city redoes, and they do little bitty one piece of an application, and then they run out of money and that's it. You're absolutely right, data is what it's all about. The one thing you're not bringing up that I think bears a lot of discussion is the way they could actually create a smart community is by monetizing that data. They need to find a way to monetize it from department to department, not just to have it and share it and have a data lake and understand what to do with it. They need to be able to find a way to monetize it and sell it locally, statewide, or federally. That's the solution in my mind of how we're going to have a growth in smart communities. Because right now they look upon everything you're talking about as a cost.
Yes.
If we can get this to seen as an opportunity, then you have an actual opportunity to sell all these things you're talking about. And I believe there's a lot of market opportunity to make that happen. So I just thought
No,
I'd just throw that
absolutely.
in, and there's a number of initiatives happening to make
Right.
that happen.
And Brett, you're absolutely right. And depending on who you talk to, the politicians and or the city administration, you get a bunch of different answers there too. It's like, oh gosh, we can't do that.
So you could probably get some legal pushback on that very
Yeah,
quickly.
and that is a big, much larger conversation, obviously, that you're talking about with cities, because they have to embrace that. And they just certainly have
Even
not.
if it's just, because it's usually one department that pays for one piece, even if they have a way that they can say, I'm gonna pay for it, and your department can actually pay a portion of it as you utilize it. That's just part of the monetization.
Absolutely.
I mean, like, actually,
And-
there's one example that I can think of that immediately pops up, right? Like, every city buys something, right? And they have to post this thing in a database. Like, so say, for example, I'm a supplier of like pipes or something like that, right? I'd want to know at what price I can actually bid to the city, right? And today, it's a very tedious, laborious process, and like to do that. Easy way to monetize it is if you just put it in like a good data warehouse that you make it easier for them to like call the data and actually figure out, hey, at this particular price point, I can actually bid it because I have the supply for it.
Right. Well, I'm gonna pick on Pete's hometown there, Philadelphia. We tried, they asked us to go register as a vendor. That was 2 weeks ago. I'm still working on it. I mean, it's the whole process is just kind of heinous, but.
Well, so,
and that's,
because you're dealing with a government entity, and to say they should operate efficiently and function in a rational way is a fine thing to say. Just remember, you're talking about a government entity, and fundamentally, there is nothing, there is no hard data available on earth about is a government functioning efficiently.
Also,
There's no cardinal data. There's only ordinal data.
absolutely.
So since you can't add it and subtract it, you can't
It doesn't
really
exist,
measure
right,
it.
right.
You can just have more and more sophisticated opinions, and city councilmen are politicians, and they only have one goal.
And then, sorry, real quick, but I want to, the other thing is
That's
too,
all.
is that's why we're going baby steps, right?
Because you got to.
You have to. You have to handhold them and bring them along. Now, some of the things that we're seeing all these chief innovation officers, right? That are popping up over the smart city officers. You can like or not like whoever's in there, but at least they're trying, right? They're not organizationally, they're not even set up correctly, right? So they just don't. So
They're set up like governments.
yeah. So I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So this is your earlier point about security. One thing that you're gonna, I would see popping up as a huge problem is, so say you talk to a city about monetization or any type of department, a major aspect of security is going to come up because you're now dealing with data that the government has mined from its population and is now trying to monetize, which that brings up freedom of privacy, right to privacy, all this stuff. Also,
It's actually a taxation issue as well.
there's the citizens are now being essentially taxed without any consent at all. They never even. This is a bureaucratic
Or
issue.
being represented.
Exactly. Also, there's the point of security has to come not just from software, but also from hardware. Hardware is probably the strongest point for security, and I mean, just from your model, I don't know how much control you guys actually have over hardware implementation, over the oversight, the security that it provides, because you might be able to say, oh, we have an encrypted, data stream and all that, but if the hardware is not as secure as it needs to be, that could undermine the whole premise of what you're trying to do. Yeah, exactly. The entire, multi-billion-dollar industry is now freaking out because they have a huge security gap in millions upon millions of chips.
Absolutely.
So I mean, I see this as a huge stumbling block for you guys. I don't know how you guys would engage with the hardware thing, but I feel like you would probably need to embrace both the software and the hardware side.
No, absolutely. Everything has to run on something, right?
Yeah.
So absolutely.
You have another major issue with regard to most cities. So, in dealing with some of the municipal entities here in the Metroplex, and in talking to them deeply about their security protocol, you would be embarrassed to see what their infrastructure looks like. Okay, I mean, I can't tell you how many municipalities in that, I mean, I actually know about 20 of them who do this, I won't name them because it's awful, who actually run XP as their server base.
You can just use the city of Dallas and it'll be very
No, it's worse, I mean, there's one worse than, so, what? XP.
Yeah.
Sitting on Jack's desk.
What's wrong with that?
Mine ran for 18 years with never a glitch.
Can you give me your IP address? Right now, please?
Okay.
Okay, and by the way, how much money do you have in your checking
Oh,
account?
yeah, not enough to buy
Okay.
it. Yeah, it's certainly the Russian mob is interested.
Well, I mean, everybody's interested. Well, I mean, here's the deal. It's not only the Russian mob, it's somebody who wants to perpetrate maybe a hate crime in Dallas, or somebody who wants to maybe hack 168 tornado sirens in Dallas, or somebody who wants, I mean, that might happen, you never know, right?
voter fraud.
Or voter fraud, I mean, Chuck, this is such a, I mean, there's
And that's why we're having, that's actually, that's
there's a
exactly
worst
why.
case to the city of Dallas with XP
Absolutely.
running.
But it's
And I
not just,
can't, I won't tell you.
Well,
it's just
I mean,
worse.
it's worse than that. You talked about infrastructure earlier. Who thinks there's a municipality with more than 3% accuracy in their as-built drawings and data files about the infrastructure in
Well, I
the
mean-
cities? They don't know. They don't know. They don't have, and they know what the design was. They have the construction drawings. No, they don't bother.
So let's, by the way, one other comment with regard to that. Most of them don't actually even, when you actually bring it up and talk about the NIST cybersecurity framework, you know what they say?
IT's taking care of it.
So when you talk to the CIO of the city,
Yeah.
okay, who owns
taking care of
IT,
it, right?
right? Again, he is IT that's taking care of it, and you talk to him about the NIST cybersecurity framework, they go, what's NIST?
You got a comment back there?
well, I was gonna say, it's not even security against attackers. I mean, you've got servers running on XP sitting in the closet collecting dust. We've all seen computers die. They're not even managing their data.
And
The server's dead, they just lost 20 years of history.
yeah, and that's again, those are long conversations, right? We haven't solved any of this, right? These are going to be ongoing issues, and that's the reason why we're doing this. Let's just try one area that we know is somewhat secure based on the way they're doing it today, right? And then try to build out from there. There's certainly not one answer. Security, again, it comes up every single time, regardless if it's software or hardware. It's always, and it's about who owns the data too. Every time we've gone in and talked to a city, they're like, well, who owns the data? Do you have the data? What data are you capturing? What data are you looking at? You know, what are you going to do? Are you going to monetize it? So those are the questions that we're getting. So somebody talked about low code back there. I think it was you, right? So again, talking about the technology and how we're kind of tackling it, it's like there's zero code platforms out there right now that we're utilizing that enables us to really rapidly develop prototypes and actually rapidly develop applications and deploy them to iOS and to Google Play right on the same platform, right? So it abstracts all layers from the development of the UI UX, which has kind of been out there for a while, to the data modeling. So we're sitting on top of Neo4j and Mongo, so we're sitting on the latest kind of technologies to enable that kind of connectivity between data, right? So now we can build relationships among data along this federated environment. But also the business logic of creating the if then else and the loops and all the other iterations, all the different things that you want to do with code or do with function can now be done in a codeless environment. It allows us for obviously rapid prototyping, so we actually prototype within weeks instead of months, create applications in months instead of years, and it all keeps everything in-house. So one of the things when I own a software company is that we had this hybrid in-house and offshore kind of productivity. So we had the sprints and the scrums and the agiles and everything else. Well, we have a lot of issues with that. So with the codeless environment, typically you have application developers. You don't have people who script. So now you have the SME sitting next to the developer. They're actually talking and they're creating the functionality of the application right there as you sit. Or you have the UX person telling them how to drive on the UI side. So those are some of the things that enable kind of this smart city rapid movement. So once the city makes a decision, we can then move very rapidly to create the functionality and or the application that sits on top of it. So, challenges, you guys have kind of hit some of these. So they're getting barraged. I mean, every IoT company, every single large company, from AT&T to Ericsson to Verizon to every telecom along this corridor is just killing them with all of these ideas, right? But they're all these kind of one-off ideas a lot of times. They haven't really looked at holistically. So what we're trying to say is the cities aren't there yet from a data perspective. Let's talk about it. They don't have the data. And if they do have the data, they don't understand it, or if it's not secure or whatever. So there's an infrastructure issue with the data that we're seeing. You guys are pointing that out. And cities aren't structured correctly, right? They're structured in silos and departments. Nobody talks to anybody. Data doesn't talk to anybody. Nobody talks to anybody. They really honestly don't talk to anybody. So cities are trying to transform themselves, as you hear more and more discussions around, innovation officers and these committees that are cross-pollinating all these different departments and agencies and everything else. It's an ongoing process. There is nobody out there we've talked to that has it down at all. So those are some of the challenges we're facing. And of course, city administration, right? How many people you walk into a city and they're the expert in data, right? Or the expert in anything else, right? They just don't have the right skill set because they've been viewed. People that work in the cities typically don't want any more work because they're overwhelmed right now. So any change you bring, they're going to be pushing back because they're used to a manual type process, do their job, go home kind of thing. So there's also a challenge just in the skill set when you're talking to cities on how they're going to actually push things out. But future is bright, right? We talk about infrastructure, and that's, in our opinion, that's kind of the key. It's kind of taking the baby steps and understanding in anything there has to be a good foundation. That foundation isn't set yet. So a lot of the, a lot of companies, that are out there now are trying to build that foundation, which I think is great. So hopefully that will start kind of moving up. We're in the wild, wild west. Like I said, you have these one-off companies selling, their solution to a city, but they think their solution is the world. They're not talking to anything else. They're not creating this open API that enables other systems to talk to it and do work with that. So we need to have vendors that are thinking about that. Kind of like the AS400, right? It was the world, right? And some of the stuff that we've seen over time is they have APIs, but they don't do a whole lot, right? Oh yeah, we got an API. It costs you $5,000 for us to go create that API for you. It's like, really? It's going to take you that much to do that? So those are some of the challenges, some of the things. But as you build things out for, for cities or anybody else, you're not the world, right? So we need to be able to talk freely with each other to do work and be more efficient. And the race is on. We're out there. We're a startup, just like this guy over here. It's like we gotta, there's a window here. Actually, I think it's a pretty wide window. I think it's going to be going on for decades. But right now, the first movers are going to take advantage of it.
Do you have any examples of things that you're doing that are successful, making cities money, or at least?
Hey Tom, can you talk up? Because I'm old and I can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
What?
Is there anything that you guys have done or in the process of doing that are going to make cities money, or at least save enough on the cost where they can go to their city council and bid the project and get it funded?
No.
Okay. Good answer.
And yes, to some extent. So we're at this point, there is an ROI out there. We don't know how to calculate it yet, because we think that over time, through civic engagement, some of the types of stuff we're doing as far as calling on data, you're going to save just in warm bodies, right? So it's a cost savings as opposed to a revenue generation like she was talking about, right? So we think there's an ROI out there yet. We just haven't had enough information to really say there is. But intuitively you would think that if you're saving, the city of Dallas, for instance, gets a 1 million submissions in the 311, or 700,000, something like that. If we can just save 20% of that, it's a pretty big nut, right? So
And that's a cost center savings.
that's a cost center savings,
And then
yes.
on top of that, you may have profit center opportunities,
Yeah, depending on the political, yeah.
but you're not gonna share police data with somebody maybe that.
That's
In
correct.
other words, the silos are there for a reason,
Yes.
right? Because of public, and private.
And then that's why we're sitting kind of as a platform in a sense that, we're only going to use the data we need to do our work, right? We're never going to be taking data out, right? So we're federating it. We're just trying to figure out what data we need out of each system in order to do the work we want to do to enable a city service to make quicker decisions and or to do their job more efficiently.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. Sounded like silos are a bad thing, but really silos are fine.
Yeah.
And they probably need to exist. And what you need, the challenge then is getting interoperability and access to data within the right level.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, and we're not in the business to change a silo either, right? So we're not throwing the
If
baby
you try
out.
to do that, you're fighting a losing battle.
Absolutely, because they love their legacy systems, right? So we're not trying to throw the baby out. We just want to talk to the baby.
Yeah, I guess the key is to have the data puddle talk to the data, pond to the data lake.
Exactly.
I think that one thing that, with just an observation, there's a lot of applications that aren't really that compelling or get people that excited, but maybe in aggregate they do. Like, for example, if you talk about putting an emission sensor at every high volume intersection or something like that, it doesn't really grab people. I mean, they're not like, wow, that's the greatest idea I've ever heard.
No, there are alternatives. They're saying, well, it's about damn time.
Yeah,
right?
but I guess there's a lot of ideas in the smart city space that are relevant and have some compelling reason to do, but they don't really get everybody that motivated by this.
Yeah.
So it's focusing on the things, if I was working for the city, I'd say, save me $1 million or make me $1 million. And I don't want to disparage your talk, but I mean, like the yellow brick road thing, it's neat and stuff, but a lot of people sit here and go, yeah, okay, it's cool,
Yeah.
but it's not getting me,
But if you
standing
go back
up
to
in
the
the meeting.
actors,
That's right.
the city councilmen want to get reelected, and that doesn't always mean money. If it means that they're getting their face in front of the constituents, that's just as valuable as money.
Yeah.
The city
Well,
manager has to pay the check,
Yeah.
but the councilman doesn't really care.
Yeah.
So we actually talked to a mayor of one of the medium-sized cities up in Missouri. He goes, I don't care what it costs. I don't care how many people download it. I want to be the mayor that brought it. To be honest, that's because he wants to get reelected. So when you get into that, and I've never worked with cities before, and I'm like, really? So it's a very odd kind of
And
deal.
to kind of dump on what I just said, a lot of times it's not about saving $1 million.
And we have had zero
They're like,
pushback
oh,
at all.
we want to spend all the money we have.
Well,
We've
yeah,
had zero pushback because they have budgets, right? They already have budgets involved with that. So as far as what we're charging or whatever, we've had zero pushback whatsoever.
So Dallas has the Dallas Innovation Alliance.
Yep.
And it's being managed with the deck.
Yep.
ATT's kind of product.
They got an event next week, by the way.
Yes, I understand. On Tuesday, 23rd at 6 o'clock.
I'll be there.
But they're now, at that event, they're kicking off their phase 2. What's your assessment of what happened on phase 1?
To be honest with you, I don't know enough about it. We met with Trey and company a couple of times already over at DIA, talking about it. I get the impression that it didn't go as swimmingly as they wanted it to go, but I honestly don't have enough information about the good or bad or the ugly on that one.
And then Austin has got a program they call City Up. They're going to launch it South by Southwest. And I just wondered if you had any
contact?
any exposure to that.
We actually, through Brian, like Tara said earlier, Brian's been in 3,000 city halls throughout the country, so he's very well connected. We actually talked, we should have a meeting next week, with both San Antonio. San Antonio also has a new initiative coming out in smart cities in Austin. So, yeah, so thank you. Yeah, I have not talked to them yet about their initiative though. Yes.
You mentioned the disparate pay platforms that I might have to go to Dallas and pay on different platforms, you know, and that sounds like a big problem to fix and big, something that citizens would get excited about. Are there any other really hot button things? I mean, the only things I can think of that I would like in Plano, I live in Plano, I'd like to know when my mail's coming, when my garbage is being picked up and things like that, but there's nothing else that probably gets me too excited because my bills get paid by auto pay and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know. I was just curious if there's any other really hot things that you see citizens get excited about.
Well, I think one of the things that at least the city is excited about and we're excited about is the ability to call on the data through natural language, right, through the mobile device. Instead of having to mine information about Dallas, again, citizens only want to talk to Dallas when they want information from them or have to do something with them. So they don't want to have to go and figure out where to go. So being able to provide them the ability to call on when my trash is picked up.
Without having to go through
the menu-driven, right. Or yeah, through an IVR kind of thing. So smart IVR is another kind of thing.
But also to that point, getting to know their constituents. For me, I have small kids, and so being able to access the data of what events are available, and then the city being able to see what events they're spending money on, and making savings on maybe events that aren't worth it. Is anyone really going to this, this, and this? No, our citizens are wanting this, this, and this. And so you'll see the savings, but you'll also see connecting with your constituents on a different level.
You had a question?
Go ahead, you go first.
One of the ideas that strikes me is my girlfriend's an avid gardener. She gets written up by the homeowner association, hey, you have great lawn and all that kind of stuff. Why not offer it as an add-on, since most of the water billing is done through municipalities, and say, I can go online, you're not revealing the actual homeowner, but say you're using 50% more water or 100% more water than everybody else. Are you aware of this? You're basically you're giving people useful information. They may have a water leak. Have you thought of checking it? Because that's a real liability. An average, last I saw, with the city of Dallas loses over 15–18% of the water disappears. They don't know whether it's bad billing, leaks, or whatever. You laugh. Any private company lost 15% of their inventory. They'd be looking to fire people, go to the VA or whatever. Why not offer that as a potential service to walk in and say, if you offer this to people, they're going to want to use this data. You're not revealing anything. You have zero privacy issues on that.
Well, they need an IoT device to do that, right?
Yeah, but then you also have like electricity. Most of the providers give you a graph, bar chart, whatever. You can look at and see, hey, it was really hot weather, my electricity bill would skyrocket. You know that, but all of a sudden your electricity bill would way up. Well, it was Christmas time last month, so yeah, had all this big display like the Griswolds, so it went up. But if you offer that on water, it's something everybody uses, they gotta have.
And actually, you'd be surprised how many cities don't have any. Yeah, so you'd be surprised how many cities he probably knows that do not even have metering.
Yes,
electronic.
Yeah, some of them do. I mean, like we don't have in Plano, we don't have the gas. That was
Yeah, so
a huge spike. People's bills have gone from $20, $40 a month to $300 this month.
Yeah.
And they've been complaining because they're doing estimates. And
yeah, and that's the infrastructure thing we're talking about, right? So there's just infrastructure not there.
So, I do have a question about a funny allegory. So in Frisco, where I live, on Christmas Eve, my water, the water pressure gauge in front of my house on the main feed ruptured and burst. So I lost the water in the house. So try to get a plumber on Christmas Day, and the answer is, you can't. So, needless to say, I went to Lowe's and got, so I called the city, because the water's just gushing out the front of my house onto the street, right? I called the city and said, can you, shut my water off the main, right? Like, I'll deal with it. I got a tub, I can flush toilets, you know, I'll be dirty on Christmas Day, I don't give a damn. Anyway, so, they shut the water off. They knew I had a problem because I called the city to shut the water off. 2 weeks later, I get a little door thing from the city. We've noticed that you use an excessive amount of water this month, right? They are monitoring it, okay? But the problem is, they couldn't marry the fact that I actually, as a responsible city, called the city to shut my water off, okay, and the water data usage. So now I actually have the right as a homeowner, because I had a rupture, to call them and get a remittance off my bill for the excessive water that I used because I had a physical problem, okay, that was noted. So I will do that. But they can't tie the three things together in one department.
Oh, yeah.
And this is Frisco, which is probably one of the top technologically advanced cities in North Texas. Now, the question that I had for you, that was just an allegory to your water comment. So they are looking, so they also did bill me one, they did overcharge me in 2017, $1,100 on my water bill, because they shifted a decimal point on their billing system. And then they said to me, should we apply this to your bill? I said, no, come me a damn check, damn it. $1,100 anyway. You're gonna get all the data, the inference data. So you're gonna put it in Mongo, which is an unstructured data source, right? You get it from all the other data. You're gonna get it from all the other cities. Okay. What about from a monetization perspective, taking external data sources, marrying it to the data, anonymizing the data, and providing inferential references to go forward and sell to external data sources? Is that a revenue source for the city? And oh, by the way, does that violate the privacy issues of the citizenry of each of the individual areas? And this is a real important problem when you start talking about traffic data, because of course traffic data is important to be shared, and there are a lot of initiatives to that. And with autonomous vehicles, that's going to be critical, especially when you have NHTSA's 2023 standards for autonomous vehicles. Blah, 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 blah. Are you looking at doing stuff like that?
No, not on the monetization on the data. But again, because those are very, very long conversations and very high level conversations, very political conversations, and we have to. We're a startup.
But that's how you got to pay for the stuff.
Right.
They're paying us for it, right?
That's how the city pays for the stuff.
They are.
They do stuff that's not paid for. I mean, Plano has a Plano Fix-It website, which I love, kind of along those lines. That doesn't necessarily save them any money. But,
No.
It's just a service.
If they're going to upgrade their infrastructure,
oh yeah,
and they're going to go forward and provide a unified platform for the citizenry. So, like, if you look at the city of Dallas, right? As an example, how many departments does the city of Dallas have? How many departments does the city of Dallas have?
I don't know.
Okay, they have 71. Okay, they got 71 departments that they have to integrate their systems to, right? You know, the cost to integrate the systems is actually physical and tangible. If you had a monetization strategy to go forward and do that.
Again, that's an unbelievable idea, but again, that's a long and arduous process to go through. The architecture of that, as well as what are you going to do with the data, how are you going to monetize it, and oh, by the way, you still need city council approval to go do it.
Yes.
Your kid might get the job.
Right, exactly. So as a startup, that's a great idea, but I can't go tackle that today.
So what's the most valuable anonymous data that you can think of? What's the most valuable anonymous data that the city could produce?
So I charge $300 an hour. I would be really happy to have that conversation.
So we're already going to get by.
But yeah, I mean, those are absolutely opportunities out there. Again, our play is to sit on top of the data and do work on the data, right? So if that means monetization, let's go do it. But that is not our vision.
Okay.
We're civic engagement, and we're a data play.
We need an idea.
I like it. Fantastic, guys.
Thank you.
All right, great.
Thanks, don't be able to stay around.